So why? Why would anyone spend hours and days working on artwork just to throw it in the ocean? Why would an architect make clothing out of barbed wire? And most curious of all, why would I get photographed trying to kiss cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, my husband? He's here. It's way cuter. The answer to all of these questions goes something like this. The complexity of our world demands for our very survival that we make instantaneous assumptions and conclusions about our surroundings. If you drove here today, you did just that. You regulated your speed, and you avoided hazards, and you weren't aware of it. On one occasion, as a bodyboarder, when I paddle out, I assess the conditions similar to that. And on one occasion, I noticed a young guy, sitting out there, and I thought he would be an aggressive surfer and perhaps be kind of annoying to be around. So I wouldn't even remember this incident at all, except for what he yelled to me as I began to paddle away. He yelled, "Hi, Mom." I had just stereotyped my own son. I was mortified. So, if stereotyping is a skill set that we need to survive, it also gives us false information. And the anecdote, or the opposite of that skill set, is curiosity. And it's curiosity that permitted someone a long time ago to not walk past a bush with little pink berries that were very bitter and seemed like poison, but to stop and wonder and explore roasting and grinding and brewing, and today we have venti mocha frappuccinos. Thank God. So curiosity and the ability to see the world and to question the world and see it in a different way is also a skill set that can help us to survive. So in my artwork, I endeavor to look at things in a slightly different way, to try to question common items and to see what else can be done with them. So I'd like to share a few of those with you today. So the first time that I took my 10-foot-tall, red, shiny surfboard out into the ocean, I was rescued by the lifeguards, 8 of them. Humiliating, right? Well, before you make any conclusions about this, let me just explain that this particular surfboard, while it's made in the same shape as, or made with the same technology as a conventional board, it's in the shape of a bowling pin, a big red bowling pin. So to the lifeguards, it looked like the red hull of an upside-down capsized boat. And they did the right thing. They didn't pause and wonder, oh, is that art? Oh, I wonder what it means. They came to the rescue. And I also did the right thing as the artist of this piece. I went back, I apologized to them, and I brought them cookies. So even I had underestimated the power of the object and the image. But you can see that while lifeguards can't pause and wonder, and firefighters, emergency workers, the rest of us can, and we might see something a little differently. While I worked on that particular piece, then I was working with a surfboard shaper. So I noticed in the corner this pile of scrap material that was left over from when they shaped out of the foam blanks, the custom-shaped surfboards. And I asked about it, and they were scrap material left over. It was trash. The shapers call them bones, and from these bones, I am fashioning a 15-foot long by about 6 to 8 foot wide whale's rib cage. Whale's bones have had years of evolution to give them shape, whereas the bones I'm working with are shaped by the waves that the custom boards are intended to ride. I call them oracle bones after a tradition in China 3,000 years ago, where bones were used to predict the future. So I'm kind of into leftover things, and as an architect for many, many years, I traipsed over construction sites, and I admired the leftover items or the functional construction materials that were intended to be embedded in concrete or hidden behind drywall. So as an artist, I can now explore some of these things. And when I saw some workers removing barbed wire from a particular construction site, I asked if I could use it, and they agreed, yeah, take this trash. So I began thinking about fences and barriers and walls, and I began to contemplate, in the words of, to paraphrase the poet Robert Frost, it's really a question of the distinction between what you wall in as opposed to what you wall out. And clothing, women's clothing in particular, really is very similar to fencing and has those similar issues. If you think about it, women's clothing restrains the wearer. I think of running in high-heeled shoes. And it also protects. So if you think about it as well, it protects the modesty of women more than anything. Unlike France and Brazil, we like bottoms as well as tops on our swimsuits. So the barbed wire skirt explores that paradox in that it restrains the wearer. I really can't sit. And it also protects the wearer. Nobody's coming up to give me a hug. So it also has further paradox in that it's transparent and it flounces when you walk. So it's sort of a mixed message that women's clothing in our culture sends out. So the natural progression after having worked and thought about walls was really to think about doors. And doors are, well, except for the rare instance, like going to the dentist, you seldom think about where you're headed when you walk through the door or that action. But doors are a transition, clearly, between public and private, inside and outside. And I've been using doors as a canvas to overlay the photographs of other doors to make a dialogue between the two. And if you think about it, doors of a museum, there's a very big distinction between the art that can be viewed on the exterior of a museum as opposed to the interior of a museum. In order to witness the art that's on the inside, you have to open a door. You've signed sort of an architectural contract. You walk through and you say, essentially, I'm here to see what you have to show me. Whereas the doors, without crossing over a threshold, if you go by a museum and they have artwork on the exterior, murals say, you haven't signed a contract. So that art really has a different relationship with the viewing public. So that kind of brings me back to why. Why would I try to get photographed kissing cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin? You remember he was the first human to orbit the Earth and sent the American space program in a frenzy. Well, the photograph is not so much a photograph of a kiss, nor is it a photograph of me or Yuri or even the American space program. It's really a photograph of my curiosity. I was curious to see what the space between us might look like. And if you look at the space, to me it looks like South America. And that causes me to wonder, well, what does the space between all of us look like? What does the space between the person sitting, wonder for a moment and think, what does the space between you and the person sitting next to you look like? Head to head, shoulder to shoulder. Some of you are touching, there's not a lot of space. But if you think about that and you exercise your curiosity on a regular basis, you can avoid those unconscious stereotypes, you can see more clearly and maybe at least have a little fun along the way. And just as I discovered when I falsely categorized my own son, stereotyping can limit and isolate us. So, as Henry David Thoreau said, the question is not really so much what you look at, it's what you see. Thank you.